for making fun of your fashion sense and how you blend different colors. And now the green shirt is back like
That's right.
Michael Myers at the end of Halloween Resurrection. It was a terrible piece of cinema.
What happened after I wore the green shirt under a Commander's jersey?
That's the thing.
We moved on.
It's now lucky.
Exactly.
So
It's now a lucky combo.
After the Lions win by 14, it goes in the bin. Okay.
If the Lions lose this, the green shirt is going to be like has his own shrine. at the Happy Hour.
Legendary. Be legendary.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That's right, the green undershirt rolls on another day and drinks for free here at the Happy Hour bar.
Yeah.
Easy. What's
Magic.
going on here?
Yeah.
Stretching it out.
Back.
It's right. It's back, baby. It's back. You're damn right. It's back. It rolls on, much like my beloved Washington Commanders. It's a Victory Monday, Jay.
Yeah.
Like it has been 13 other times this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on with the voice?
I was screaming a lot Saturday night.
I was going to say.
I was screaming a lot. I was screaming when, we went for it on 4th and 1 early in the game and we didn't connect it. I was screaming when, Terry McLaurin races to the house when we couldn't tackle Jahmyr Gibbs. I was a lot of screaming.
The Cardiac Commanders.
The
I got
Cardiac
to say,
Commanders.
for a magical season, they play so many high leverage downs. It's unbelievable.
It's on 3rd down, 4th down, it's like crazy. I'm just like, oh God.
They're like
And then they convert it.
they're magnetically drawn to being in 4th and 2.
Right.
Just constantly. It's like the 3rd down play never works, but then the 4th down play
That's the
works
beauty of
like
it.
89% of the
It's
time.
unbelievable.
And the coach believes
Yeah.
in it,
Yeah,
which is
they
all that
believe.
matters.
They all believe.
How about Dan Quinn kind of getting Dan Campbell at his own game a little bit?
I love
A
it.
little bit. But I mean, that's how they played almost all the
Right.
entire year. Is
Right.
just going for 4th down. But yes, there's no question Dan Campbell and Dan Quinn kind of cut from the same cloth, if you will. Kind of, old school football guys, but we're gonna
Big hat guys.
Yeah, exactly. Hat on a hat. We're gonna smash them in the mouth. We're gonna go for it. Screw that. We're not kicking.
Best Commanders win since 91?
Yeah, hard to top it, right? It's amazing. Detroit's a great team. Detroit's a great team.
Yeah.
They're a well-coached,
anymore.
great team. No, they're still a team. They're still a team, Jay. They're still a
looking ahead.
team. But to go into Ford Field, which is an incredibly hard place to win. Detroit showed up and it was loud there, and so to go into Detroit to play against the number 1 seed as 8.5-point underdogs. It closed at 8.5, and to win by 2 touchdowns, which by the way should have been even more. It should have been over 3 touchdowns. Because Zane Gonzalez missed a field goal at the end, would have made it 17. And the honest part is that brutal, absolutely brutal non-face mask call, which extended their drive, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. They should have been 4th and 10. They should have been punting.
Yeah,
that's where that was an awful call, and I don't understand how replay assists can't just call down and say you guys got it wrong. And it's super weird how replay assists sometimes they call down immediately and sometimes they don't. But whatever. I don't want to just get distracted from the fact that my Commanders are 1 game away from the Super Bowl, baby. The green shirt might be going to New Orleans.
Oh. My goodness. Obviously, if they make it to the Super Bowl,
Shut down
you probably have to wear a green shirt on all 5 days of our show.
I might have to. Because this is an NBC Sports green T-shirt. I may have to call my friends. I may have to call Peacocky himself and say,
Mr.
Mr. Peacocky, I need 4 more.
Yeah.
I need 4 more of these bad
It
boys.
is pretty remarkable that Detroit punted on their first drive. They never punted again. They just seemed to roll whenever they wanted, but the Commanders still won by 14 points, and to your point, could have easily won by more. But despite the fact that they never stopped Detroit outside of the turnovers, which are obviously key.
Was the difference.
That was the difference.
And that's the difference in the game. I will never understand what Ben Johnson was thinking of, putting the ball in Jameson Williams' hands with the season on the line. My thing with that is that play, and in that position, the player always wants to throw it.
They always will.
And they always will. They never eat it. They almost never eat it unless they're accustomed to being in that position. And so Jameson, he's always going to let it fly. And Ben Johnson had to know that. And it's just bizarre. Because it was still a game then. They were down 10, driving with 8.5 minutes left.
I was super nervous. I was super nervous at all those. At almost any point. We're in a group chat. And Jay's like, you guys got this. It's minus 175 that you guys are winning the live line. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm still because I'm just.
Minus 175 is not a lot.
You have to understand that I have over 4 decades of rooting for this team, and I've seen way too many. And listen, faith in 5 and all that, but like, I don't know, they were just gashing us, and I didn't understand why they didn't just say like, we're going to keep giving it to Jahmyr Gibbs until they stop it.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I mean, like, Jahmyr Gibbs ended up, I think, with 24, 26 touches, 24, 25 touches. It should have been like 35.
Yeah.
I don't get that. And to the point about Jameson Williams, it's interesting. So I was just in Philadelphia yesterday with the Football Night in America crew, and we were obviously talking about the Commanders game. And I was talking about with Chris Sims and Jason Garrett and Deb McCourty, and we were talking about that. And the specific point about that was, I said, it's interesting because think about that 4th and 1 early in the game where the Commanders went for it and didn't get it. Mariota comes in. It looks like it's going to be a trick play. It looks like Mariota's going to fake doing a brotherly shove and then turn around, pitch it back to Jayden Daniels, who was going to race to whichever side was open, right? And Brian Robinson comes in, and it looks like Brian Robinson didn't get the memo, and he's just trying to push Mariota forward, and then they sort of get locked up, and the play fails. But what Mariota didn't do was try to play hero ball. Yeah. He didn't try to like reach around Brian Robinson and flip it out or something like that, and it could get caught on Robinson's hip, and then it's fumbled, they pick it up, and they get 6 in disaster, right? He's just, all right, I'm just going to eat it. The play's not there, I'm just going to eat it. Cut to then Jameson Williams, same thing. It's another trick play. It's not there for you, and instead of throwing it out of bounds or just keep running for like 5 yards, he throws it and throws a pick. And it's interesting, we were talking about it, and Devin was just saying, like, what they should have done, or I hope that they did do, was in practice, you run it. You run that play all the time, and you tell the defense it's coming. So that Jameson says, like, okay, if the defense, and you tell the kid, throw it away. If they snuff it out, or just run. Yeah. Just don't. But yes, in the game, you're right. They're always, like, the adrenaline's there. I want to play hero ball. I want to make this amazing play that's going to be, This
is my one shot at throwing.
2019 Aaron Rodgers would have struggled to make that throw in this very tight coverage. It's unbelievable that is how the 15-2 Detroit Lions, their season goes down with Jameson Williams rolling out to the right trying to needle in a pass. But Commanders move on and they'll have a chance. They're 5.5 point dogs against Philadelphia.
Oh, it's already 5.5. It opened at 4.5 yesterday.
It's bouncing around between 5 and 5.5. But there's going to be like a 1 in 3 chance that the Commanders are in the Super Bowl.
And this is what the Commanders have been dealing with the entire season, the playoffs, and we got to hear from Jayden Daniels on why they believe they can continue to win.
I always believe that we could achieve more than what people give us credit for, but you got to go out there, put in the work. You got to go out there, work daily, get better each and every day, and just put your head down and grind. And by the end of the time of the season, you look up and you might be in a position like this. It's a very electrifying fan base, game, atmosphere. So, I was excited playing it, but you can't let the outside distractions, distract you from what the main goal is, and that's to win.
Pretty simple from Jayden Daniels. The main goal is to win. He's played really clean football through 2 career playoff games so far, Matthew, and both games on the road.
He's been unbelievable. I mean, like to win 2 road playoff games as a rookie, and I think it was Kyle Brandt that shared this stat on social media where it was just something like the defensive rank of all the rookie quarterbacks that have won, like Roethlisberger, Sean King, all these rookies, Mark Sanchez. Yeah, Purdy. Where their defense is ranked. Yeah. It's all first, second, or third.
Yeah, Purdy's was third, was first. Sanchez was third, like top 3 to 5.
All top 3 defenses. Sean King's was top 3 as well, and with Tampa Bay, and the Commanders are 18th. Yeah. Like he's doing this with the 18th ranked defense. Again, like they punted once. Yeah. They've punted once in 2 playoff games. The Commanders have, and they haven't turned the ball over. So I mean, like the last interception when they're down 14 and Goff throws in, fine, whatever, that doesn't count. But the Jameson Williams pick, the Jared Goff fumble, the pick 6 that Jared Goff throws, and by the way, even the one at the half was huge because if they could have gotten some points, they're going into the half with points and some momentum. Like San Francisco played, it's interesting. So many people make such a big deal of Jayden Daniels, rightfully so, being the number 2 overall pick. But San Francisco in the second round has been a home run.
That's Adam Peters, right? Adam Peters is now going to be in 5 of the last 6 NFC Championship games. And I understand what the Niners had for a while, but what he's done in such a short time with the Commanders, because it wasn't a lock that you just take Jayden Daniels second overall. This is a good quarterback class, and we're seeing that. Sanders-Still, who was a wide receiver at Michigan, they flip him to corner. He's got ball skills. He's been awesome for that defense, and you could play him all over the field. That's the difference with him. We talked about the matchups going into this game. We're like, I don't know. How are you going to stop, this guy, this guy, this guy? And Sanders-Still was really the difference maker on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, the story is Daniels. Daniels having the greatest rookie season that anyone has ever had at the quarterback position. I think now there are 5 dudes at the quarterback position in the NFL. It's Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, Burrow, and Daniels. Like, Daniels is the 5th guy. And frankly, and people get upset because I understand that everyone did the same thing with C.J. Stroud to an extent last year, and this hasn't been as good. Daniels is playing at a much higher level than Stroud did last year. And I think that the gap between him and the next guys, it should be like, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, whatever. Like, Daniels is a tier above those guys the ways he's
I was talking
played.
with Jason Garrett about this, and I said, hey, this is the negative Commanders fan in me, just because I've been burned. But like, is there any chance that this is an RG3 thing? Like, RG3 had this miracle rookie year and then just was never the same guy after this. And Garrett looked at me like I was crazy. He's just like, this guy is, no disrespect to RG3, he's just like, this guy is on such a different level than so any other. Not even close. Yeah. Not even close. The reads that he is making, the plays that he's making. I will say this. I mean, I think you could make an argument that the long pass to Diami Brown, and we've seen all the screenshots where like a guy is literally on his helmet and it goes right in there. Like, that might be the throw of the playoffs so far. And I mean, just the accuracy when he throws deep is just, and it feels like to me that like you see some quarterbacks that just they have to haul off and like
it's effortless.
he flicks it.
It's
he
effortless.
just flicks a wrist.
To me, though, kind of the thing that makes him so special, it's not necessarily the athletic traits, it's just the calmness in the pocket, where there are a couple plays where it just like, as an NFL fan, you've seen it before, and it's like, all right, he's going to throw it away or he's going to take a sack, and he just calmly processes, okay, nothing's open, just sneak away and then run for 10 yards. He's turning negative plays into positive plays frequently, and his decision-making for someone who's a rookie behind not an amazing offensive line with like one above average receiver, it's insane.
Well, I think that's the biggest difference with him now compared to his last few years in college. He keeps his eyes up when he's pressured. He was, for a while in college, a guy that he got pressured, and he's like, I'm just going to run because I'm the best athlete on the field. And that makes sense in college, but that's so hard to transition at the NFL level. We've seen Lamar do a really good job of it, but we've seen a lot of guys fail at it. He's a 10 out of 10 at it, where Cliff has him working with his eyes up, and he understands how guys are going to run with him when the play breaks down.
12 of 16 for 190 yards and a touchdown when blitzed. I mean, that offensive line isn't great to begin with. They lose Sam Cosmi, which is a brutal injury. He's tore his ACL. He's out for the year for the remainder of the playoffs. So they're going to have to figure out a lot of protection stuff against Philadelphia. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, and obviously later this week as well. But I mean, just how quickly he extends plays or gets rid of the ball. And I keep talking about this again. Diami Brown's had a really nice playoff run, and they've gotten some good production out of Olamide Zaccheaus. But, like, no one was clamoring for either of those guys in August. Zach Ertz was out of football, and a lot of people were like, that's Cliff just doing a buddy for his old veteran favorite, like it's going to be Ben Sinnott here by week 2. And Ertz has been fantastic. Ertz has been fantastic this year, making clutch catch after clutch catch. They got good production out of Noah Brown earlier in the year as well. So he's doing it out there. I mean, McLaurin's special, but the other guys out there are, playing at a higher level, I think, because of him and that offense.
What was surprising to me, though, Matthew, in a way, is that just how effectively they ran the ball with Brian Robinson and Austin Ekeler, who was I know Austin Ekeler had the really bad concussion. He wasn't seen much towards the end of the season, but, I mean, he was a huge part of that game. And Brian Robinson just feels like he's just impossible to tackle. He's just so big, so tall, so strong. And the fact that, that Lions run defense has been really solid all year. Their issues have been playing man coverage with their corners, but they just destroyed them on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was going to be the biggest issue. Was it they're not going to be able to run. They're going to turn Washington into a one-dimensional offense. And I said this before the game. I said, listen, if they turn it into a track, people were asking me what I thought, and I was just like, if they turn it into a track meet, I think they got a shot. But I said, if I'm Detroit, we can't stop the run. We haven't stopped the run all year, and they're so good. If I was Detroit, I would run it 35 to 40 times and just never give Jayden Daniels the ball. And honestly, they should have done that. I think they win the game if they do that. It was odd, especially because it's like I'm not saying anything, super insightful. Like, everyone watching the game was just like, Jahmyr Gibbs is averaging like 12 yards a clip,
Right.
and then next thing you know, they're still chucking it everywhere. And I was just like, because Brian Robinson struggled towards the second part of the season, right? I mean, like, this was his most rushing yards since week 13, also his first rushing touchdown since week 13. Maybe it was because Ekeler was out and they had to lean on Robinson more, but just
And he was hurt a lot this year.
He was banged up as well, but like down the stretch, like Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez were more effective, and so I agree with you, Jay. Like Robinson ran fantastic with authority, and Ekeler was huge, just getting like big catches and runs after the catch, and just even his rushing as well. Like for a smaller guy, like he was breaking tackles and. Proud fantasy life investor, Austin Ekeler, let's go.
He kind of turned back the clock when you saw him in space, where nobody could really get a handle on him. He was making people miss, and then he could spin through contact. Like it really felt like a vintage Austin Ekeler in the pass game performance.
Yeah, I mean, forget he was our fantasy MVP in 2022.
Right,
it's
not
that
that
long
far
ago.
away.
No.
And it felt like it was such an under the radar signing. Them adding him, it's like, why is Austin Ekeler going to the Commanders? Doesn't he want to go to a contender? This team won 4 games last year. Their win total 6.5. Rookie quarterback, and now all of a sudden he's a integral part of a team that may go to the Super Bowl.
Adam Peters should win General Manager of the Year. I mean, you think about like they're just underrating signings like that. Like Lulu has had an unbelievable.
And he's bounced around all over the place.
And he has been unbelievable this year for us.
Yeah, he's makes so many plays in space, plays fast, can rush the passer, can play off the ball. I agree with you. Adam Peters should be Executive of the Year, especially when you stack up what they're dealing with versus where they are now. Like, that's not an award that, Brandon Beane to the Bills, amazing GM, but the Bills have been here before, right?
the
Brett
Bills
Beach
have-
isn't going to get that for the Chiefs.
Bills had Josh Allen last
Howie
year.
Roseman's not going to get that for the Eagles. So, it makes a lot of sense.
I absolutely should. We'll see if that ends up happening. But it was a great game. Diami Brown, 6 for 98. He's in 2 playoff games, 11 for 187 and a touchdown. We'll talk a little bit more about the Lions in the future. I'll say this. I wanted the Commanders to win. Obviously, I was very excited about it. But I feel bad that it had to happen against the Lions because the Lions are an easy team to root for, right? Dan Campbell's like awesome, and Amon Ra was my ride or die 2 years ago. Like, I like the Lions. We like Jared Goff here. Like, I'm happy we won, but like I wish it was on a different
Especially against the Eagles.
I'm not gonna be sad if we beat the Eagles, but I'm gonna be very, very happy if we beat the Eagles. So no love lost there. But I do feel for Lions fans because that's a fan base that is that deserves happiness.
Yeah, there's no Schadenfreude at the expense of the Lions. Lions have 100% approval rating. But now the joy is you go up against a team that no one likes this week. So now it's just going to be complete elation if you do beat the Eagles.
I think if you felt bad for Dan Campbell now, watching him after the loss makes it even worse. Take a listen.
It's hard, when you lose these games, man. It's like the players, what they put into it. A lot of people don't know, what they go through. You have to get up. Bodies beat you. And, mentally stay locked in and do those things. So, long season.
What happened on the 12 men on the field penalty?
It's my fault. It's my fault.
That's just brutal.
Tough scene.
It's really brutal.
Rough team. It's a tough scene, and I get it. That's a guy who lives and bleeds for his players, and that was a team that rightfully so had Super Bowl aspirations. They came so close last year, and they're like, all right, fine, we're back, we're coming back. This is they win the big game against Minnesota. We've got home field. People got to come through us to get to the Super Bowl, and then to lose a game like this where they moved the ball unbelievably well, but just again, all it was the turnovers and. The turnovers, but also the one other thing I was going to say is, and this is credit to the Commanders, right? I mean, like the Commanders, other than the they played very clean football, right? Like the face mask thing was a phantom thing, and 12 men on the field when the Lions had 12 men on the field, when it's 4th and 2, and you get a stop, that's the game right there. You've got a real good shot there, and then to give the Commanders 1st and goal at the 1, and they punch it in 2 plays later,
Yeah. I mean, this is a compliment to Detroit and Dan Campbell. That team had no right to be 15-2 with all the injuries that they had.
They had a lot of bad luck this year.
It's tremendously bad luck.
Edge rushers, corners, the whole defense was just the fact that they were able to keep Minnesota to single digits in Week 18. The fact that they were able to get through those games at the end of the season, get to 15-2, is a testament to Campbell and Glenn and Ben Johnson and the guys on the team. So, yeah, no one takes any joy in seeing the Lions go down, but, they still have an awesome roster. They'll be back in the mix next year.
Well, the thing is, too, you see him at the podium like that. Last year when he was at the podium like that, he said it's going to be really hard to get back here. Yeah. And, he got Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson to come back. They are both leaving. Yeah. It is a 99% chance that both are going to be head coaches within the next week.
I heard there's a chance Ben Johnson returns.
Well, because that's his shtick at this point.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
but
think of the job he passed up on.
Yeah, right. And we'll talk about them in a second here. But what I was just going to say is that, your window is, it's tough to get back. And so much goes into not only magical season and and players playing well, but also you've got to stay healthy, which is just kind of a luck thing. The Commanders have had an amazing season, and we just lost Cosme, right? But for the most part, they've stayed relatively healthy. We lost Jonathan Allen for a while, why don't we lose Noah Brown? But generally speaking, we lost our kicker. Generally speaking, the Commanders have managed to stay healthy, right? And the Lions, it's just a war of attrition, just brutal injury after brutal injury, and even in that game. And so, it'll be interesting to see, we're going to preview this more, but the Eagles. How healthy is Hurts? Is Mitchell going to miss this game? It looks like Mitchell is, right? And
it's some mixed reports, shockingly. When he left the game, I was like, he's done for the playoffs.
That's what I thought, too.
Today,
seems minor.
It seems like he could give it a go.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. But anyway, but that's that's so big about just how healthy you can stay or not as you get into the playoffs. So yeah, it is I am enjoying this run for the Commanders, obviously for a million reasons, but also because who knows if this ever happens.
Sure. Yeah.
Everyone's just like, oh, you got Jayden Daniels, who gets are set for the next decade, and we're set in the fact that we got a QB, absolutely. But
the Bengals.
Anything can happen.
Look at the Bengals.
They're the key example.
Yeah. Or the Niners.
Couldn't even make the playoffs.
Look at the Niners. Look at the Niners last year versus this year. They just couldn't stay healthy this year. It's such a brutal sport, and and often with injuries, there's just no rhyme or reason.
All right, let's move over to the Eagles game. The wild game. Mistakes, snow, icy rain. It felt like it had everything. But most importantly, it had Saquon Barkley rumble for over 200 yards. We got to hear from Saquon on the win and what lies ahead.
Talked a lot about this week, that famous snow game. How much did the atmosphere definitely live up for it?
Crazy, man. I mean, it was insane. Got a smile on my face thinking about it. This is what you dream about. And this is why I came to Philly. I wanted to be a part of games like this, and I'm just happy to be able to be a part of it.
One game away from going to the Super Bowl. I mean, to go to the conference championship.
Yeah, you don't look at it like that. You look at you got one more game, and the beautiful thing is I got to go through Philly. And I remember, after we lost to Washington, some of those guys were looking at us and saying that we're going to see you again, and here we are.
And Saquon, just as advertised throughout the entire playoffs. You know it's coming, and there's just nothing you can do about it. I mean, he's got 52 carries in the playoffs and 460 rushing yards.
It's video game numbers. It's
right.
Tecmo Bowl. It's like Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl.
You can't tackle him. You can't run with him. You can't do anything.
No. Before the game, again, on football night, I was talking to some of my colleagues who said, they'd talk to, some people on the other side, and I'm like, are they going to sell out to try to stop Saquon and make Jalen beat him? And they're like, yeah, that's one of the plans. And and I think they did. They tried.
Yeah, I mean, he bounced a couple.
Oh.
And there's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
When you're run blitzing and the running back knows that and is athletically as gifted as him and picks the right cutback, it's worse. You're giving up the big play.
Yeah.
There was that one play. I forget exactly what it was. I want to say it was late in the third, might have been in the fourth, whatever. But the Eagles were pinned back. It was 3rd and long, and
the dump off.
The dump off. Yeah, exactly. And they decided to blitz, which I didn't understand. They blitz, and then they dump it off to Saquon, and
that was it.
And right. And whereas, like, just stay back, guys. Yeah. Just stay back.
Yeah, play coverage.
Give up 6 or 7 yards and get a punt.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was an infuriating game to watch because I was rooting for the Rams.
Of course.
I as a Commanders fan, I wanted the Rams. I wanted to play LA for the first time this year versus Philadelphia the third time this year because so much of Washington's offense is, all these bunch formations and RPOs and just I'd rather a team that hasn't seen that versus a team that's seen it twice now. So it's going to be tough. But let's talk about the Eagles here because Saquon is it's stupid how good he is.
Yeah. There's not much really to say. I mean, the O-line is awesome and Saquon is incredible and he's taking that run game to another level that the Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swifts couldn't get to. Because I think Saquon, his season kind of gets denigrated in the sense because the Eagles O-line is so good. It's like
they're dominant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's different though because the first kind of gap is open, but then Saquon's brilliance is being able to take that 6-yard gain into a 70-yard gain, which DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders weren't able to do the past couple of years. But we'll say you said that this was a frustrating game to watch. Well, I had Eagles -6.5. And let me tell you. This is the most infuriating beat of the year for a few reasons. One, there's just like so many moments where it just felt home. They get the tush push on the 4th down, and then it gets called back with a false start, and then they have to kick the field goal instead. They're up 7 with like 3 minutes left, and I'm like, all right, this is home. Because I have such great confidence that the Eagles defense is going to stop the Rams even if they punt. And then I see Saquon streaking into the end zone on the 78-yard run. I'm thinking, no. Like, this is the way it goes down. Right. This is the way that opens up the back door. And then, sure enough, Elliott misses the point after they got up 13. Prevent defense, the Rams score. Just a mess all around. So a tough beat for the 6.5 Eagles punters.
Well, not just a tough beat for them, but a tough beat for people that went on national television in front of like 15 million people and said, A.J. Brown, 10 yards in the first quarter is my Barry's bet for today. Like he gets a target there that cashes that, and he just alligator arms it. And by the way, I also my parlay, my DraftKings three-play parlay for the game was I took an alt under of 50.5 that came home. I took a Saquon anytime touchdown that came home, and I needed I needed A.J. Brown to get. I took over 4.5 receptions. I needed A.J. Brown to get 5 receptions. He got 7 targets. He came down with 2 of them. Like, he played awfully. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing that, like, everyone says, the Eagles are going on, and this is the thing that somewhat gives me hope for next week. There's a couple things that give me hope for next week, but one of them is that the Eagles' defense was amazing. Both lines, the offensive line and defensive line of the Eagles were awesome, and Saquon was amazing. But the rest of the team was terrible, I thought. Like, I mean, the Rams shouldn't have been anywhere close in that game.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that will always give you hope in these games is that there is a massive gap between Jayden Daniels and Jalen Hurts at quarterback.
Colossal.
And it's only going to be bigger if Jalen Hurts is banged up, which he almost is certainly going to be to some extent. Maybe he's okay, and maybe the injury isn't as bad as it looked, but he certainly looked a little compromised afterwards. Didn't seem like they wanted to use the tush push until they absolutely had to. So that is the path for the Commanders, is that they have a huge advantage at quarterback.
We have the better quarterback, and when you have the better quarterback, you've got a shot. Their line is so good on both sides of the ball. They're just ridiculous, and so it'll be interesting to see if they can keep up. Can they stop Saquon? I was talking to Devin McCourty about that, and I said, like, what's it like trying to tackle him? You know what I mean? And Devin's like, it's awful. He goes, because you think you have him, and then like he does one little like you've got gap control, like you're where you're supposed to be. And then he does one little shift and he's gone. And you're like, if you're off by like that much, like you just lose him. And it's just like, and you're like, how's a guy that big,
that's the problem,
that fast and shifty? Yep. Like, it's unbelievable.
What do you think is the main reason why Hurts has seemingly regressed from when, it's easy to forget that 2 years ago, he was the MVP favorite going into like week 15. That team was dominant. He was amazing in the Super Bowl. Is it just that Steichen isn't there anymore and the offense is different, or is he just going backwards?
I think he's not confident seeing the field. Like, look at the safety.
Yeah.
The only thing you can't do there is hold the ball. You either throw it away or you even just charge forward, but you can't hold the ball. And he holds the ball so much because he's not confident in what's in front of him. Another thing is when he runs, and this is before he got hurt, I want to make that clear. He slides 3 yards before defenders every time.
Yeah.
Where, like, Jayden Daniels, Josh Allen, even Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, like they make you pay and move it forward. Like he's not – the touchdown run was good, but he's not this runner where you're afraid of him in the open field consistently.
I mean, I understand. This is also a guy that, by the way, missed, 3 weeks or whatever it is with a bad concussion, had a very bad concussion towards the end of the season. So that maybe that's
I think it's been going on for a while, though.
Yeah, it's understand, but I think there's probably some fear there. There's also not to become a Jalen Hurts defender, but this is the guy that was my ride or die a couple of years ago.
And he delivered.
And
he delivered.
Yeah, and he delivered
time.
that year. He was great. So we appreciate you, Jalen. Not this Sunday, of course, but overall, we're I'm a pro Jalen guy. But I'll just say that this is his third offensive coordinator in 3 years.
That's a lot to deal with.
He went from Steichen to Brian Johnson, now to Kellen Moore, and even though Brian Johnson in theory was running the same offense, it's a different guy. It's not somebody different in your ear. So for 3 years in a row, he's had to deal with this. So that's a challenge there. And then also, by the way, I mean, I just feel like I have no stats to back this up. This is just me anecdotally, but I feel like the number of games where he's had A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert all together hasn't been that many. I feel like one of them's always hurt. This one misses a chunk of time, then the next one misses a chunk of time. So they just haven't had and they don't have a lot of depth beyond those three guys either.
Oh, you're not a Jahan Dotson guy?
I can't believe we got a third and a fifth for him or whatever it is.
I think the thing is, the one thing with Hurts has always been that he doesn't use the middle of the field as much as people want him to, and it's a lot of go balls to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and maybe that's a scheme thing. But to me, the bigger issues is that it's year 5. He still doesn't seem like he can handle a blitz, and that really surfaced in the playoff game last year against Tampa Bay, where Todd Bowles had his way. And then the other thing is just the internal clock just isn't there.
That's the biggest thing for me.
He doesn't seem to feel pressure, and that doesn't seem like something that can really be taught.
Yeah. Having said that, I mean, again, he's got probably the best offensive line in football this side of Detroit, maybe, right? I mean, I
think I would say number one.
Yeah. I mean, and so. But and he's got a generational running back.
Yeah, and he's still a good quarterback.
Right,
I
don't want to act like Jalen Hurts.
I feel like we're comparing
not the combo.
It's
not the combo.
He's easily a top 12 quarterback in the NFL, maybe top 10.
Yeah,
right?
that type of range. It's interesting now, the setup, because I think he is unambiguously the weakest of the remaining 4 quarterbacks. Yes. And I also think that unambiguously he has the best supporting roster
They're the best
of
team.
everyone. So that's going to be the.
It'll be interesting to see sort of what's more important, right? Yeah. I'll also say that I think coaching will be interesting in this one, right? Sirianni's made some interesting calls over the course of the year.
Yeah. America is going to want Washington in this game. Let me tell you.
I think so. I think America desperately wants anyone but Chiefs, Eagles again.
America wants Washington, Buffalo.
Yes.
That's what I want too.
Yeah,
that's the most fun one.
I know. I want Eagles Chiefs.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I'm going full villain. I want Eagles Chiefs. I think it's a great product.
Why?
Absolutely.
I
think the Eagles are the best team left, team. I'm not just one of those people that's I want to watch the best quarterback. I want the best team.
Okay.
And I want Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to chase Belichick and Brady.
Yeah,
I enjoy
it. That. I mean, they probably. I don't know.
Buffalo's if it was Chiefs Eagles, I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I'm definitely. I would rather that.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they're a division rival.
I won't be mad at any outcome, but if I could pick the Super Bowl, I would enjoy Chiefs Eagles.
Yeah. No, I would be mad if the Eagles win the Super Bowl. It's a division rival. It's nothing against you, Philly. It's just
that's how it is.
I would think Eagles fans, Cowboy fans, and Giant fans will be annoyed if the Commanders win the Super Bowl.
I'll save it for later. I have a bet that Giants fans would not enjoy watching on television.
Okay,
so that's for the end of the show.
Real quickly before we move off this game, it's frustrating because I think the Rams easily could have won this game, right? And they still had a chance down the stretch. If Stafford throws a touchdown.
The Kyron fumble.
The Kyron fumble was bad. The first fumble that was really slipped out of Stafford's hand as well. They took a ton of sacks. I mean, I think what did he take, 8 sacks or something like that? Stafford
Jalen Carter
just
owned real estate on this entire game.
I hope, and I'm going to assume Cliff Kingsbury is going to do this, but please double Jalen Carter next week. This is what I mean? Just double him. You might have to triple him, but at least double him next week on every single play. But did you see the Kurt Warner thing about home field advantage? Did you guys see this?
No.
So Kurt Warner talked about how he hates the fact that playoff games are played in bad weather. and I was just like, what are you talking about? It's playoff football. That's fun, you know. And then the more he talked about it, I'm like, that's actually, I think, a very fair point. And so he made this point, and I thought it really came to play in this one. His thing was like, when I was, you know, I played my career in a dome and then in Arizona. He's like, it's not enough about to say like, oh, well, they won home field advantage, so they get. He's like, I can't practice in that. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't get like Philadelphia. You think about Philadelphia and the Rams. The Eagles can practice in what the environment is in SoFi. They can practice in quote unquote good weather, right? But the Rams can't simulate.
Maybe teams should fly somewhere and practice somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe they should. But I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, and it was clear the weather affected this game, and it would have been nice to.
I'm all for that though. That's home field advantage.
Right.
But that's Warner's point. Warner's point is, yes, it is, but it's also like, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be the weather. Home field can be the crowd's into it and they're yelling and they're screaming. Fine, that's fine. That's home field in basketball, right? You know, home court advantage in basketball. But his argument is that the elements, like you can't simulate snowstorms and like, you know, hail and sleet in Arizona if you want to practice that.
I think his point is totally fair and probably right. But I think something I enjoy, and this is where fans are very split, I like the variance in sports. Like, I like how baseball stadiums are different dimensions.
Sure.
I like how in football, weather can play a factor. It's something I like. I get why people just want the best product.
Yeah. No, I love that Josh Allen has to win in the snow and then in a dome in New Orleans if he wants to win the Super Bowl, and you have to be able to blend your game to different.
Yeah. Maybe, but I don't know if that game becomes different. You know what I mean? But like, it definitely would have played. I don't know if the result would have been different if they played in a dome. But it definitely would have played out.
Saw it in a dome, and the Eagles won 37-20.
For sure.
Saquon running 300 yards.
I mean,
right.
But you understand, like the weather absolutely affected that game.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think anyone would dispute that.
All right, Ravens-Bills, obviously an absolute thriller here. The Bills come out on top. They get to see the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen, kind of a strange game. A safe game for Josh Allen, 16-22, 127 yards. He rushed 10 times for just 20 yards. He did fall into the end zone twice, which is very important. We got to hear from Josh Allen after the game on the win over Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, and, of course, looking ahead.
You know, missed a couple throws. Wish I had him back. But, again, I got nothing but love for Lamar. He's one of the greatest to ever put a uniform on and play in the NFL. Honored to share the field with him.
Your reaction now that you're headed to the AFC Championship game?
You know, it's what we've worked for, is an opportunity to play another week. You know, we don't want our season to end on a loss, and this gives us an opportunity to keep going, but we'll enjoy this one. You know, a lot to learn from this one. Obviously wasn't pretty, but these playoff games, man, you got to win by one. That's all that matters.
A lot of ball control for the Bills and Joe Brady's offense. And this is a team, Matthew, that took advantage of Baltimore's mistakes in both halves. Lamar's mistakes were in the first half. Mark Andrews highlighted the second half.
Right? I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about with, I mean, all the games. I mean, it sort of feels like that's playoff football, right? You know, the Eagles won because of, you know, the Rams had a couple of brutal turnovers. Commanders beat the Lions because of all of their turnovers. Like, I mean, it's the turnover battle. The team generally, cliches are true. Cliches are cliches because they're true. And they've just been repeated over and over again. Like, teams that can run the ball, play good defense, and more importantly, win the turnover battle, win in the playoffs. And so that's going to be the key for the Chiefs and Bills, and it's going to be the key for the Commanders and Eagles. And so whichever team wins the playoff battle most likely wins the game.
Yeah. It's kind of a strange game because it was a great game. It was an epic game full of spectacle and theater, but also feel like there's no real greater meaning to discern from it. Like, the Bills did what they needed to do, and on the Ravens side, like, Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, they have been the face of that offense for this era. Yeah. And Andrews had the worst game of his career.
Right.
And Lamar Jackson wasn't good for 3 quarters. And now, look, I think he gets a lot of credit back from how he was a 10 out of 10 on that final drive in the biggest moment. But he wasn't good until that point. And Allen didn't make those mistakes, and that's why they lost. Ravens have the better team. Like, I think they showed, I think, that they are a better team than Buffalo. They have more talent. I think they have a better defense than Buffalo. I think their offense is just as good, if not better. And it's just that Lamar had 2 brainless turnovers, like really bad turnovers. And Mark Andrews had multiple drops, terrible fumble, and the 2-point drop at the end, just like that sank them. So that's the game. Their best players didn't play good enough.
Yeah, I mean, right. You want players to play well in the biggest moments, right? I mean, that's why they're superstars. And, you know, we like Mark Andrews here, right? Friend of the podcast, friend of the show. And it's a shame because that's going to be It's the Mark Andrews game, right? And it's just like, you know, I mean, we'll see how the rest of his career turns out. But, like, I would think that maybe it's just because it's top of mind. Like, that's what people are going to take away. Like, 5 years from now, like, that'll be, you know, unless something happens different, right? That's going to be the defining moment of his career, and that sucks.
Sure. How well do you think Lamar played yesterday?
Well, the turnovers are just they're soul-crushing. Like, you look at the larger sample size, he had some really good drives, some big throws. Yeah, he did Lamar things on the ground, but that fumble when you're spinning out of a sack that returns for, 50 to 60 yards, like, that's the difference in the game right there. Like, that's a year one or year two quarterback mistake, not an MVP mistake.
It's the mistakes he was making in his first playoff game against the Chargers all those years ago. That game where he just kept on fumbling. And look, to me, in like the third quarter, he looked rattled. Like, he really looked rattled to me. He was missing throws. And then I thought it was incredibly impressive that he was able to absorb that performance and then deliver in that final drive and be basically perfect on the final drive. So that was impressive, but the mistakes in the first place got them in that position where they needed to convert the 2-point, and they didn't, and the season's over.
I'll say one thing to the point. Like, I don't think I entirely disagree that the Ravens are the better team as we think of, but I think this game highlights how underrated the Bills' offensive line is.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good unit, and because they have Josh Allen, who's amazing, because they create turnovers on defense, they get a lot of credit there. But the Bills' offensive line is really good, and that's a sustainable way to go further into the playoffs.
Yeah, and by the way, and this was like sort of, you know, Joe Brady's offense, again, 16 to 22. Like, he attempted 22 passes, 127 passing yards. Like,
a lot of screens.
Yeah.
Which is, they controlled the game in that way.
Right. Super smart. And, like, we're going to run the ball, and we're going to play conservative, and, like, we're not going to ask Josh to put on his Superman cape and win. And, like, it was – right? And, you know, no turnovers. You know, that's something that has plagued Josh Allen throughout his career, is sort of like these, you know, kind of, you know, back-breaking turnovers, and that didn't happen. You know, I mean, like, he played mistake-free football, and he cashes in the 2 rushing touchdowns. Really would have liked James Cook desperately to get one of those, somebody who had a lot of money on James Cook. But shout out to our friend Lawrence Jackson, who last week gave out, this was a player special on DraftKings, you know, 5 rushing yards for Derrick Henry and James Cook in each quarter, and that cashed. So me and producer Damien both bet that, and we were very happy, very happy. There were a couple of close calls, but yes, that ended up cashing. So shout out to Lawrence. Great, we tailed
Plus
that.
Money King.
Plus Money King. Oh, it went off at plus 400. Oh yeah, good job, Lawrence.
Very
well
good find from Lawrence.
Yeah,
very good.
All right, our final game here, guys. The Texans lose.
Real quickly, I just want to mention really underrated game from Khalil Shakir.
I mean,
he's just you know, 6 for 60 in both playoff games. He's just been rock solid for them.
While Mark Cooper's invisible, Shakir's been the go-to guy.
Shakir's been terrific.
All right, the Chiefs take care of business against the Texans. Patrick Mahomes, another, you know, efficient but boring-ish quarterback performance. 16 of 25, 177 yards and a touchdown. Big game for Kelce here, Jay. 7 of 8 targets, 117 yards and a touchdown. It's just Kelce's just different in the playoffs.
Yep, he hits out over 52.5 receiving yards with ease, and yeah, he just activates that extra gear. He's getting targeted more, goes to your point, 7 for 117 on the touchdown. He was a monster. Such a strange game. Always strange games that the Chiefs play. It felt like these teams were very even. It felt like it should have been closer, if not for the pivotal run back at the start and Fairbairn missing all the kicks. Again, a brutal way for 8.5. Texans plus 8.5 to go down. A lot of people on Twitter, because everyone on Twitter always gets the best of the numbers, so everyone had plus 9.5. I had plus 8.5, so it was a very tough way.
Funny how that works
to go down.
Yeah, I did as well. That was again with the missed extra point, the missed field goal, the blocked field goal, and let's be like 2 absolutely soul-crushing calls.
Yeah,
like the 2 roughing the passer calls, which again. When Troy Aikman is just like,
he was fed up.
When he was just like, this is ridiculous. When the announcers, generally speaking, the NFL doesn't like their announcing teams to be critical of them, understandably so. And so good for ESPN, good for Troy Aikman, good for Russell Yerk, who, you know, correctly said, these are bad calls. They missed them, and both calls were really critical. Texans had other mistakes that they made. They couldn't protect them at all. Like, Chiefs defense had a great, played great in that fourth quarter. Super weird by Bobby Slowick to, like, everyone in the building, everyone in the entire planet, everyone in the universe knows they're blitzing. Yeah. They're going to bring heat. Yeah. Figure out a protection. And they didn't at all. And you're like, what are you doing?
Stroud barely ever had a second during this game.
Like, we all, like, I mean, like, my 13-year-old daughter said, oh, are they blitzing? It feels like they're blitzing. Why don't they block anyway?
I don't understand how the Texans' run game sucked all year, and then 2 playoff games, Joe Mixon all of a sudden super efficient, 5 yards per carry.
On like one leg.
Strange game from Stroud. I thought Stroud was fine outside of just the sacks, which were ultimately crushing and a huge part of the reason why they lost.
Right, and you could sit there and argue, like, a lot of them are not his fault. There's times where the quarterback's to blame. He was running for his life. And I mean, credit to Spags. The way Spags snipes gaps, the way he sees the field in game, I mean, it's nearly flawless calling.
I didn't think Mahomes played a great game, but he did have like the touchdown pass to Kelce is just just stupid, like like otherworldly.
Huh? They're gonna win the Super Bowl.
They probably are. They probably are. I mean, listen, it's great. Weird, and we'll get into this a lot in the offseason, but since he's come back, Isaiah Pacheco has looked fairly pedestrian and not as good as Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
No. I mean, and Kareem Hunt much more efficient in this game. Like Pacheco looks like he's running in mud, and so it's going to be a weird thing that the Chiefs are going to they're going to need to be balanced, I think, against the Bills.
They were leading the whole game, and Pacheco got 4 more carries than Matt Ariza. Ran it out of the end zone at the end.
Tough stat. We're taking our first break. When we're back, unfortunately, a lot of great players, their season ended this weekend. Who among them is high in our 2025 drafts? We'll tell you during Who's Eating Good right after this. Manchester City tries to climb back up the Premier League table against Chelsea. City beat the Blues at the beginning of the season, but it's a whole different league now. Watch live this Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. Who's Eating Good? Served by Applebee's. Let's take a look at Matthew's way too early rankings for the players that their season ended this weekend, Matthew, quite sadly. A lot of promise ahead, though. Better days ahead.
Better days ahead. I'm going to update this after the Super Bowl as well. News will come out. News came out today that Matthew Stafford is going to take time to think about his future. If Matthew Stafford decides to retire, that would certainly affect Puka Nacua. I've heard rumors that Cooper Kupp might be moving on as well. And so if Kupp were not back with the Rams, that would be interesting as well. I'm too low on Jahmyr Gibbs. You see him there at running back 4, and but he's going to move up. Like, I think there's an argument to be made for him as number 1 running back, at him or Saquon. Like, they're right. I mean, just, what Gibbs has done down the stretch. I'm too low on Gibbs, even though I have him at 4. Like, and the other thing that's going to be interesting here is what happens with Detroit. We sort of hinted at this earlier, but if Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn leave, I think back to Philadelphia after their amazing season when Steichen and Gannon both left, and they struggled. I mean, Brian Johnson wasn't a fit. Defensively, it wasn't a fit, and and now they've found their footing again with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. But there was a tough year where both sides of that ball just didn't work out, and so transition period. So what happens in Detroit if Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn leave?
Yeah, and I think the ripple effect there is most important for Jared Goff, because we forget that, Jared Goff, 2 years ago, no one wanted him. This year, he's a fringe MVP candidate, seems to have an amazing rapport with Ben Johnson. So just the ripple effects of that into Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta will be interesting to monitor.
And even Baltimore, maybe Todd Monken, kind of has a shot at one of these jobs, and that kind of change. Rightfully so, and and we say this every year, Matthew, like another year getting older for Derrick Henry, but how much does it ever matter at this point?
Yeah, at some point, interesting, what a fascinating case is going to be is Rashad Bateman. Because very quietly, Rashad Bateman's been awesome down the stretch, but Zay Flowers has been out, and what Isaiah Likely, by the way, had a nice game here. It's been overshadowed by the Lamar turnovers and obviously the Andrew drops and the issue with Andrews, but Likely had a nice game, Bateman had a nice game, and they've been really nice down the stretch here for Baltimore. So, what does this offense look like if Monken leaves, but Zay Flowers back? There's a lot of interesting things there.
Yeah, done writing off Derrick Henry. I'm just going to assume he's going to be the exact same guy. The other thing with Henry, that I get that he's 31. Running backs typically fall off well before that. It seems like he's an outlier in terms of how well he takes care of his body. He's just a freak from that front as well. So I'm just going to assume that he's the same guy until we see otherwise.
Just trust what your eyes are telling you year after year after year. Maybe the most interesting one is the Texans, because maybe there'll be an overcorrection on Stroud. He was taken at QB 5-ish.
Yeah, 5 and 6, QB 5 or 6.
QB 27 around. So that's a giant gap, Matthew. Such a hard player to place in ADP-wise next year.
Nico Collins proved that he's an alpha. He's a wide receiver 1. He's going to go high in drafts, and rightfully so as well. But Stephon Diggs was on a 1-year deal. It's interesting. Will he come back as well? Is he going to be healthy? What about Tank Dell? So they're going to be really interesting. And Joe Mixon's another guy that you're sort of like, how old is this guy? At some point, don't the wheels fall off? And he's younger than Henry, but he's had massive usage throughout his career. And so, but again, looked pretty spry against the Chiefs. So, by the way, what was your bet? Because Commanders plus 8.5 obviously came home. I know,
Kelce.
I had two.
Kelce.
The parlay came home, which was my Ravens and Rams alt lines. That cashed at plus 102. The one that didn't cash, Jared Goff was 23.5 completions. He finished with 23. They took one away from him. The Jahmyr Gibbs third down that he threw, they changed it to a rush attempt. I lost on that.
That's brutal.
That's
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Yeah, that's
tough
a weird one.
Very odd.
Because I feel like when a stack correction goes in the positive way, you don't suddenly find new money in your account.
No, it doesn't work that way. All right, we're coming back with more bets after this. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. It's yours.
It's yours. Use promo code Barry.
Last call. Let's take a look at some of the lines for championship weekend, guys. I am not taking any of these right now. I'm going to get one step further ahead. I'll take Saquon Barkley, Super Bowl MVP at plus 550. I think the Eagles are going to make the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, Matthew. And listen,
you think they're going to win?
And I think they're going to win, and I don't think it'll be because of Jalen Hurts. I think it'll be because of Saquon Barkley.
Okay, well, Matthew, I'm taking Eagles minus 5.5 against the Commanders. I think the Eagles defense defines this game.
Screw both you guys.
Yeah, no.
Screw both you guys. You know what? They never believed in us. No one believed in us. No one believes in the green shirt. No one believes in Jayden Daniels. Faith in 5.
Everyone believes in Jayden Daniels. Let's make that very clear. Everyone believes in Jayden Daniels.
I took the Commanders at plus money to beat to cover against the Bucks. I took the Commanders at plus money to cover against the. I took the money line at plus money, and I also took them to cover against the Lions. I'm taking them to cover against the Eagles. Hail the Commanders! Hail victory for Jay and Connor. I'm Matthew. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're back Thursday with a preview. Screw you guys.
Hail the green shirt.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.